from will come from Exodus chapter 14, verses 5 through 9. Once again, Exodus chapter 14, verses 5 through 9. If you have the King James Version, you'll find these holy, divine, and inspired words. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, encamping by the sea beside Paharoth and before Baal-Zephon. The word of God. As I said, my brothers and my sisters, we want to deal with Red Sea Rule number 3. And if you're here for the first time, we're preaching. There's a book out there entitled Red Sea Rules by Robert Morgan, and in that book it lists 10 strategies that God has given us for difficult times. So on today, we're on Red Sea Rule number 3, and the Red Sea Rule number 3 is acknowledge your enemy, but keep your eyes on the Lord. So don't act like your enemy is not there. That's not it. We want you to acknowledge your enemy, but keep your eyes on the Lord. And as I tag this text, Minister Perry, I would like to tag it, if you will, the good pursued by old enemies. It was the great preacher Charles Haddon Spurgeon, Brother Eric, that said, the great tyrant has not forgotten you, and he designs your capture and re-enslavement. And Justin, that's an adequate picture, if you will, of Satan, because he doesn't leave you alone. He is a great tyrant, and just because you're saved, he ain't forgot about you. And he designs your capture and your re-enslavement. And let me help you. Temptation is not a sign that you are weak. It's a sign letting you know that the devil can't stand you. And he can't stand me, and he can't stand any of God's children. The devil sometimes launches direct frontal attacks, just like Charles Spurgeon gave the definition of. But Satan now, he's usually, Reverend Owens, he's usually conniving, and he's usually insidious. You remember, Andrew, when Paul wrote to the church at Corinth in the 2nd chapter of 2 Corinthians verse 11, Paul says, let Satan get an advantage of us. Then he says, before he closes it out, he says, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Then he tells us, Robbie Patton, in Ephesians 6:11, Paul warns us against the wiles of the devil. In other words, he says, watch out now for his schemes. Watch out for his shenanigans. Watch out for his trickery. And even in that book, he said, you got to be careful and marvel not, because Satan himself, he can transform himself into an angel of light. So you got to be careful, because this rascal, this no good rascal, this snag-a-tooth, 3-time loser rascal, you got to watch him, because he's slick. He doesn't wear the red suit that they told us that he wore when he came up. No. Satan puts on a 3-piece suit and carries a briefcase. He will use any incident to distract and to diminish from the work of God. But make no mistake about it, his main purpose, Mary Gray, is to attack the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the reason he wants to attack it, because he believes the Bible more than church folk. Satan knows God's word will not come back void. Satan knows if somebody ever get hold of this thing, he knows if that word ever gets on the inside of that person, Satan knows that there's breakthrough in that word. He knows that there's healing in that word. He knows there's deliverance in that word. So that's why he keep you looking at her bag don't match those shoes. That's why he keep telling you she ain't got but one wig and she wear it every week. That's why he got you looking at who coming with who and who going with who, because he knows if this word ever gets on the inside of you, he'll keep your mind on stupid stuff that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. So you will come broke, you will leave broke, you will come disgusted, you will leave disgusted. You won't never change, because Satan said, I simply detracted them from hearing the word of God by letting them look at somebody else, and they was too busy measuring her hair instead of measuring the blessings that I had been blessing them with. Folks so nosy now, they come to church with binoculars. They can't see from over there, so now they got to see who's sitting with. And all that is a distraction. He don't want you to get your deliverance. See, he always wants you to be written. He always wants you to be at the bottom. He always wants you down and out. And we fit into that when we come and just look and talk and get distracted by everything. One thing is for certain. Whenever he attacks, however he attacks, whether it's covertly or overtly, he is usually closer and crueler than you realize. And let me help you, because us church folk talking about, well, you know the devil go to church. No. The devil has been brought to church by Christian folk. Because the devil is not a spirit that floats in the air. So if he's in here, that means somebody brought him. So be careful about you talking about how the devil was in church today. Well, guess who his host was? It was you. He needs a body to reside in. You remember the hog. He said, at least throw us into the hogs. And the hogs had more sense than we do. Once the devil got in the hogs, they went and drowned themselves. He's closer. He may be sitting right next to you now. He's closer, just like the Pharaoh of Exodus. As this tyrant, Minister Perry, as Pharaoh, as he gazed over his wasted domains, he saw slave ghettos, and he saw them deserted like ghost towns. Pharaoh looked around and noticed that all of his building projects had been suspended. There was no longer, Gervais, the sound of construction. There was no pounding of hammers. There was no scraping of rocks. And there was no shouting, Brother Taylor Jones, by the foreman. The snap of the leash was now hushed. There was no slave nearby to draw Pharaoh's bubble bath. There was no slave around Latrice to oil his body. There was no servant there, Sister Nita Richardson, to fetch his breakfast. There was no servant there to bow at his feet and tell him how great he was. So Pharaoh, realizing that he had been hoodwinked, Pharaoh realizing that he had been bamboozled, Pharaoh realized that he had been okey-doked, and now his anger rose like mercury in a thermometer. And all of a sudden he looks around and he says, wait a minute, why do we let these folk go? It's time to eat. I usually got folk bringing me something. Where the servants go? They say, Pharaoh, you let them go. Pharaoh said, oh no! Summon the generals. We got to get them back, Justin. Oh no. Wake up the troops. Somebody got to bathe me. Harness the chariots. Now consider the parallels between Satan and Pharaoh. See, both are unyielding enemies coveting the power of God for themselves. You remember that old crazy Satan going to tell Jesus about, if you just bow down and worship me, I'll give you all this. Satan, he owns all that. But notice how Satan is. Everything he gives you, you got to bow down to get it. You got to bow. And notice he knew, Dr. Bazan, that he didn't have the power to push Jesus down. That's why he said, you bow down yourself because I know I can't make you. And if you bow down, I give you all this stuff that you made. Both have been plundered by the Almighty, and both are enraged beyond endurance. Both have assembled vast armies for the destruction of God's people. But yet, Jada Maddox, neither seems to realize how utterly defeated he already is and was. See, the Bible likens Satan to 5 types of animals. In Genesis chapter 3, he's likened to a serpent that's trying to deceive God's people. In Matthew chapter 10, Andrew, he's likened to a bird that tries to despoil God's harvest. In John chapter 10, he's a wolf that is trying to attack God's flock. In 1 Peter 1:5, he's likened to a lion, a roaring lion, trying to devour God's people. And in Revelation chapter 12, he's likened to a dragon wanting to destroy God's people. And I told you before, this is very interesting. If you look at this, Deidre, in Genesis chapter 3, he started off as a snake, a garden snake at that. And then in Revelation chapter 12, he's a dragon. How did the snake grow into a dragon? That's because church folk fed him. We come in church, oh, child, the devil on me. Oh, child, the devil on me. Your car don't start. Child, the devil busy. My car won't start. Child, my devil busy. You know it's cold now, and my furnace won't cut on. Listen, baby, honey child, let me help you. The devil is not in your furnace. He may be in your bed, but he ain't in your furnace. You just need a clear, one of them things, I don't even know what they call them because I'm not mechanical. Them things that catch the stuff, what they call? Filter. That's what they call. Yeah, I told you, I don't know nothing about nothing. He's not in your TV. He may be in your bed. But he got big because we fed him with lies about how great he is. In our text today, Andrew, the children of Israel, they had not gotten far on their freedom march before Pharaoh made his chariot and pursued after them. He pursued them with great hatred. Pharaoh said, that Moses fella done tricked me. He reproached himself for letting them go free. Why did I let them folk go? Why did I let folk go that draw my bath? Why did I let folk go that's making straw without brick? Why did I let them, you know what's go? And thus it is with those who have just entered upon the freedom of the soul and who are setting out for the land of promise. So Red Sea rule number 3 highlights 3 things for us. First of all, it lets us know, this is my first point, the good are pursued by Satan. The good are pursued by Satan. You see, Satan does not surrender his prey without a fight. Chariot wheels, they're churning, the dust is coming up. He's seeking to discourage you. He's seeking to defeat you. He's seeking to devour you. He pursues you with the intensity of Pharaoh. See, Satan, the reason he pursues you, he says, wait a minute now, that was my best dope dealer. I got to go back after him. He was cleaning up. That's my best pimp. That's my best prostitute. That's my best whoremonger. That's my best liar. That's my best cheater. I ain't going to let God just take him. folk wonder and say, Lord, Reverend, why is it that when I